Hello everyone, and welcome to Galaxy 89 Cars. Today, thanks to Joe Macari Performance Cars, I'm taking you on an in-depth exterior and interior tour and exhaust sound video of this 2018 Ford GT. At the time of publishing, Joe Macari have this, in addition to many of the high specification cars for sale, and all of their contact details can be found in the description of the video. The modern incarnation of the iconic GT started in 2005 with the inimitable 5.4 litre supercharged V8 powered reincarnation of the legendary Le Mans winning GT40 from the 1960s. This line was officially reborn in 2005 to celebrate Ford's 100th birthday, and so far it only consists of two generations, the aforementioned and now this. This latest GT is a far more sculpted and light-footed car than its predecessor, and was bred next to its Le Mans winning cousin that won the iconic endurance race 50 years after the original GT40. The new GT is based on a lightweight and rigid carbon fibre monocoque chassis with an integrated steel roll cage and comes in at 4,779mm long, 1,063mm high, 2,003mm wide, and has a dry weight of 1,385 kilograms. We can now move to GT's engine that's kept under this glass cover. The cover is actually part of the lightweight carbon rear deck lid that can be unlocked using the button on the key and then lifted up and self-supported on a single strut. Looking down, we find GT's engine surrounded by more carbon, with lots of ridges to aid ventilation. GT is powered by a rear mid-mounted 3.5 litre twin-turbo V6 EcoBoost engine. This power plant produces 647 brake horsepower and 745 Nm of torque, all sent to the rear wheels. This output results in a 0 to 62 mph or 100 km/h time of 2.9 seconds and a top speed of 216 mph. At the rear of the carbon-clad engine bay, we find the oil tank with its aluminium screw top. Once finished here, the lid can be easily brought down and fixed with a firm press at the rear. Moving down to GT's corners, we find the standard 20-inch front and rear lightweight multi-spoke wheels. Ford debuted their carbon wheel option on GT, so it is possible to spec fully carbon 20-inch wheels here, saving around 1 kg of unsprung mass per wheel. Moving to the brakes, and we find Brembo High Performance Matrix Carbon disc at its corner, 394mm at the front and 360mm at the rear. Then moving to the car's stability, GT comes with innovative and heavily race-inspired double wishbone pushrod suspension, controlled by a multi-valve damper and attached to dual-rate coil springs. This setup, combined with its hydraulically controlled ride height, that we'll see later in the video, can provide maximum stability for high performance. Now we've finished the model overview, we can start the in-depth exterior tour from front to back. The front takes inspiration from its predecessor with its angular and slanted design. The front grille is underlined by a carbon splitter and feeds cool air into the front radiators and front brake cooling ducts on either side. There are also active flaps here that act to balance aero when the rear wing is deployed. Gone are the lower lights from the previous model, and in their place we find these side air channels that help to direct turbulent air from the front wheels for better stability. Moving up, we find the Ford badge and the start of the iconic double racing stripes. On either side of these, we find the LED beam centrally and angular LED tone running lights on either side. Moving back in, the bonnet behind features familiar central cutaways. These send air from the front radiators and send it over the car to further reduce lift. The heavily rake-backed windscreen is behind with its two wipers below. Continuing back, the roof is a flat, featureless area, and the doors take up much less of it than in the previous model. We can now move to GT's lateral aspect. At the bottom, there is a thin, gloss black side skirt. At the front of this, we find an open area that allows air to flow more freely from the front of the car. This air then travels along the side skirt and into the awaiting air intake at the end for the rear brake cooling. Above this is a strong body line that helps to build towards the rear buttresses and rear airflow channel. Moving back and up, we come to the elegantly formed electrically adjustable wing mirrors that project out on slim stalks that also contribute to aero management. Continuing back, we come to the integrated door handle with the black lock display above and fuel tank flap to the right. This flap can be easily opened with a light depress and can be used to access the 69-litre fuel tank with the car returning a combined MPG of 14. To the outside of these features, we come to the buttresses. These serve to provide greater support to the car's chassis and help to channel air, but also cool the intercoolers. The large channel these help to create contains two further structures. Firstly, a vent that releases hot air from the engine bay. And secondly, another intake to help speed up and release the air inside the rear wheel arches. Before moving to the very rear of GT, we can look at one of the main features in more detail, the rear wing. Currently, it's in its raised sports setup. Out of all of the cars I've reviewed, GT's wing most resembles an aircraft wing in form, and comes with a rear gurney flap to further enhance airflow management. The wing can be positioned at different levels depending on driving mode, and can even be used as an air brake. At its rear, we find an integrated LED brake light strip. Looking underneath it, we find the thick struts that enable it to ascend and descend, and push it vertically for braking. Directly underneath this are the dual exit sports exhaust pipes, that also allow hot air to flow from the engine bay thanks to their open surrounds. We will hear these shortly. On either side, we come to the LED ring rear lights, that allow air from inside the rear wheel arches to be released from their centres. Below these, we find more air release aids in the form of these vents that further aid cooling and stability. As we continue down, we find a large and aggressive diffuser that helps to manage rear airflow and create an area of low pressure to suck the rear of the car to the ground at speed. This comes with a reversing camera at the bottom. Now we've finished the exterior tour, we can move inside. GT has quite an understated key with a button to unlock, lock, and unlatch the rear with a double press. Unlocking GT will display the icons just behind the doors. The doors can then be opened by depressing the flap and lifting the door up. The interior of GT is as race-inspired as the exterior, so inside we find lots of exposed carbon fibre, Alcantara and bucket seats, and we will focus on all of these features in more detail as we progress. We can start the in-depth interior tour with the doors. Immediately departing from the previous model, the doors here are flat at the top, and start with two contrasting Alcantara panels. The carbon panel below is exposed, and we find two large air vents at the end of it, continuing the car's new angular aesthetic. Below this, we come to the rather standard looking flat armrest with electric window and mirror controls. The button to release the door is on the side of the floating door handle. Moving in from this, we come to the interior lock controls integrated into the door speaker. The lowest part of the door appears very wide, but it's actually hollow and holds the form for the side skirt. GT comes with a standard 119mm ground clearance, which can be reduced to 69mm in race mode, as we will see soon. Now looking here, we find the air channel, and looking from above, we see that GT has quite a wide sill due to its carbon monocoque. Despite this, ingress and egress wasn't too difficult, but there's certainly a technique. The Alcantara upholstered area around from this starts with the emergency door release and a lateral airbag. This section ends shortly after as we join the wide carbon sill. Moving along this, we eventually come to the air channel for the door vents and the exterior light controls. Now sitting in the driver's seat, we find a huge departure from the previous GT. Gone is the simplistic circular steering wheel, and instead, we have this angular Alcantara upholstered multifunctional wheel. Taking a closer look, we find shift lights at the top, then beams, driving mode rotary, left indicator, skip track button to the left. And volume, infotainment controls, right indicator, wiper rotary and wiper jet button to the right. GT can be started by pressing the big red button at the start of the central column. We can now hear the car and see the indicators and daytime running lights. Moving back inside, and before we get to the instrument cluster, we can look at the long, lightweight paddles for the car's Getrag 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. Looking ahead, gone is the array of 7 gauges from the previous car, and in its place is this digital display. In its current setup it shows, from left to right, fuel level and engine temperature with door status and gear below, then the rev gauge centrally, with drive mode and speedo below and basic trip. A more in-depth trip can be opened to show mileage, range, average MPG and speed, tyre pressure and engine temp and oil pressure. Moving back to the steering wheel, we can use the drive mode rotary on the left to change the car's drive modes from normal to sport, and then wet, each time changing the display. Now moving away from the instrument display, we come to the Alcantara upholstered floating dash that provides more of a full aesthetic, but without the typical weight cost of a full dash. Moving down, and in the centre of this, we come to the 6.5-inch touchscreen that comes with Ford's Sync 3 infotainment system. It currently displays its home screen, but more detailed screens can be selected on the bottom, starting with audio. Here, we can access the FM and DAB digital radio, in addition to pairing external devices for extended media options. Phone connectivity comes after this for hands-free calls. Then navigation, that comes with a map that can be manually manipulated. Mobile apps is the penultimate menu option to access Bluetooth and downloadable apps for weather, city guides and Waze. The final menu is Settings, where an extensive list of options can be accessed, including sound and time controls, emergency assistance and vehicle, where the camera display can be adjusted. To the right of this screen we come to 3 rotaries. Top left is air temp, below it is fan speed, then 3 buttons for the aircon, and finally the air direction rotary. Continuing down, and just before the main part of the central column, we find 2 highlighted USB inputs. Below this, the central column starts with an open storage area, mainly for devices. As we move back, we first come to the red engine on-off button. Gone is the manual shifter from the previous car, and in its place we find this large drive mode selector rotary that can be used to put the car in park, reverse, neutral, drive and manual shifting mode. Back from this, we come to a small button array, hazard lights, traction control off-on, suspension mode, vehicle lift, and the electric parking brake last. Now at the end of the raised carbon central column, we can move up between the seats and eventually arrive at the rear port window to get a view into the engine bay. On either side of this, we find the carbon bucket seats. Just as in other hypercars, the seats here are fixed into the monocoque, so the wheel and pedals need to be moved instead of the seat. However, these seats do come with a lot of lateral padding, so are comfortable to sit in. The manual movement controls can be found attached to the side of the central column, and the manual tilt arm can be found to the seat's outside edge. Finishing off the seats, there is a small closable storage compartment at the front. As we've now covered the majority of the interior, let's move to the exterior compartment. The small front cover can be unlatched by pulling the lever to the left of the driver's footwell. Then moving around to the front, the yellow catch needs to be pushed to the right, and then the cover can be lifted up. To save weight, there's no gas strut here, so the manual strut below needs to be lifted up to secure the lid. Following the weight-saving theme seen around the car, this cover is made from carbon fibre. Underneath it, we find various fluid pots and associated hoses. Once finished in this area, the light carbon cover can be easily put down and fixed below with a light press. Moving back to the rear, and with the engine cover up, we can access the car's main storage area. This space provides 11.3 litres of storage capacity, and as you can see, it is currently holding the tyre repair kit and tools, a small bag, and a tool to release the wheel nuts. If we remove these items, we can get a better sense of the depth of this space, and how far it extends on either side. After finishing with these spaces, we can move back inside to focus on the car's remaining features. On the passenger side of the central column, we find the dual cup holders that eject with a light press. Looking up, there are slim, lightweight sun visors. Between these are the microphones for the hands-free and main cabin light. And finally, the small rearview mirror provides a nice view of the wing in sport and track modes. So that concludes my in-depth exterior and interior in-depth tour and exhaust sound video of this 2018 Ford GT, for sale with Joe Macari Performance Cars at the time of publishing. You can find all of their contact information in the description of the video. Please subscribe for the latest content, and until next time, thanks for watching.